Serious, when's the last time you were truly afraid, like a child in a dark room? Sleeping out in a forest with some friends. Being kept awake by the sound of twigs snapping as something circled us out of sight. Hopefully just a fox, but still super scary. Haha. My friends and I were haunted like that once camping as well. It was only after heard the gobble 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 from the source that the situation turned from frightening to hilarious. I am obnoxiously afraid of sharks for someone that lives in a landlocked state. Nearest beach is 12 hours or more away, but damn sharks creep me out. My friends and I try to take a midnight swim in the ocean every summer. We live on the west coast. We were out pretty far, talking and looking at the stars when we heard this enormous splash about 10 feet away. My friend looked at us and just screamed, "Swim." I never swam so fast in my life, and when you're trying to swim to get away from something, it feels like you're hardly moving at all. I looked back momentarily and saw something huge come out of the water, and another splash about 10 feet away. It was so dark and I could barely make an outline. I just knew this thing was bigger than me. We made it to shore and just gazed out there. Didn't see or hear anything more, but I'm betting it was a sea lion. My most terrifying time in my life would have to be March 29, 2015, when my mom phoned me to tell me my dad had been in an accident. He was in the hospital, that they would be flying him to a bigger one. They lived 10 hours away, so I hopped in my car and started driving. She called me about an hour later to let me know he was gone. That was the longest hour of my life. The last time I was truly afraid was almost exactly 4 years ago during the April 27th tornado that destroyed a lot of my hometown, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I remember being inside my closet while the whole house was shaking violently. Luckily, my house was fine save 2 trees getting blown over in the backyard. Houses 1 block away were completely leveled. I was about 4 months pregnant. I woke up in the middle of the night covered from my crotch to my knees in bright red blood. I went to the bathroom and gushed blood and golf ball-sized clots into the toilet. I woke up my husband and told him that I had a miscarriage. It was 2 in the morning on a Friday night, so we went to the ER. We went on, not because they could do anything to save the pregnancy, but because I knew if I continued to hemorrhage like that I would need a transfusion. I'm also Rh negative, so any bleeding in pregnancy means I have to have a shot. I had an ultrasound at the hospital that showed I was still pregnant. I've never been so shocked or relieved. My daughter will be 3 this summer, and if I think about that night I still tear up. For the curious, the bleeding episode happened one more time. My doctor figured out the second time that my cervix was bleeding. He applied silver nitrate to it and it didn't happen again. I was living in Ghana and was traveling by trotro, most common mode of transportation. Think 1980s minivan altered to hold 21-ish people. Anyway, I've been packed in this thing like a sardine for over 5 hours and I'm still 2 hours from home. We're on a hill and traveling round a sharp corner. To the left there is the mountain and to the right is about a 7-foot shoulder and a cliff with no guardrail. As we are making this blind curve, just in front of us appears one freighter truck passing another in our lane. Head on. With nowhere for us to swerve to avoid the collision. I took the hand of the person I was traveling with and held it in both of mine. In a matter of 3 seconds I went from anger, to indescribable terror, and finally, just as the front window of the trotro filled entirely with the grill of the truck, complete acceptance that I was about to die. Really a feeling of oh well as I relaxed my grip on my friend. Then, at the last moment, the truck swerved back in its lane as our trotro veered into the dirt patch along the cliffside before we swung back into our lane. I actually didn't believe I was alive for a moment, and that isn't hyperbole. I honestly couldn't believe it. Same ride, and now just 10 minutes from my home, we are traveling down a dusty dirt road at over 60 miles per hour. The tire blows out. Not a flat, mind you, a complete blowout. We swerve to and from both shoulders, somehow avoiding the ditches on both sides, and come to a rest in the middle of the road. When we all got out of our clown car of death to change the tire, a Ghanaian patted me on the back and said, "It's okay, oh Bruni, white person, you made it." The bit with the truck was the only time in my life I was certain I was going to die. The experience has made me more at ease about death. My last thought the millisecond before death was accepting that it was about to happen. I flipped my 3-year-old onto my bed playing around and he couldn't breathe for like 30 seconds. He was fine, just had the wind knocked out of him, but I'm actually tearing up just thinking about it because there was a split second where I thought I had killed him. Oh man, I've done something similar with my son. He landed all weird on his head/neck and started screaming immediately. I've never hugged him so hard as I did when I realized he was okay. The crazy thing is the screaming/yelling is actually a good sign that they'll be okay. Parenting isn't easy. My 3-month-old daughter had croup. She woke up in the middle of the night barely able to breathe. She was turning blue and had a terrified look in her eyes. We rushed her to the ER where she got a steroid shot and breathing treatment. The doctor there said her airway was as small as one of those little coffee straws. Last night I was woken up by banging on my window at 4 a.m. I live in DC in a not super safe neighborhood, and my immediate thought was riots had spilled over from Baltimore or something. Nope, just my drunk friend who happened to be in the area and wanted to say hey. We're in DC. That would scare the hell out of me. Ha. Like where exactly in DC? Waiting for the doctor to stick a 6-inch needle into my spine to extract fluid and see if I had an incurable disease. Ah, the good old spinal tap. I have had 2 in my lifetime. The worst part is when your brain sinks down. What do you mean sink down? Like Arnold Chiari malformation? Probably last year when me and this other dude got lost while we were hiking and we were stuck on this really steep hill when it was getting dark and we heard something down in the bushes we thought might be a cougar. Not comparable to the 6-inch needle/incurable disease thing though. God, that must have been scary. My son was ducking around in the pool floating like he was dead. Scariest few moments of my life. I cried like a bitch when he popped his head up as I was running to dive in the pool. I accidentally did this to my mom once. Me and your son are sorry. We're dumb. I would just do the dead man's float because it was relaxing and easier to hold my breath. Luckily, no one ever thought I was dead. About 5 years ago, I was on an almost empty interstate in the early afternoon when some assake of a woman in a little blue car decided she wanted to be in my lane while I was right next to her. I was in a minivan my brother had loaned me while he was fixing my vehicle. All I could think at the time was how pissed he would be pissed if I let myself get sideswiped. I honked, she kept coming, so I sped up to try to get clear, realized I wasn't going to and tried to veer off into the grass, in a fairly empty area of Mississippi, but I hit gravel and next thing I know I'm in front of the little blue car, spinning across the goddamn highway. I just knew I was gonna flip, being in a van and having been going 70 to 75 miles per hour before I started spinning. But I didn't. I ended up right side up in a ditch on the other side of the interstate facing the wrong way. The only people around were me, the woman in the blue car and a cop who just happened to be behind us. She looked absolutely mortified when my gigantically pregnant self got out of the van. But everyone was fine, no vehicular damage, so I just got the cop to help me out of the ditch and went on my way. Still kinda pissed me off, though. I never did tell my brother. My girlfriend and I almost always followed one another home for the weekend when we were in college, same college and from same hometown. One time several years ago she got really mad at me and left on her own. She called me soon after she had left and in the middle of an argument she let loose a blood-curdling scream, and as she was saying that a truck had hit her I heard a loud crash and the call dropped. I called back and it went straight to voicemail. There was really no describing how low my heart sunk. I immediately assumed the worst. Knowing that she could not have gotten far I got in my car and started hauling ass down the highway. I did not get far before I hit some heavy traffic. At first I was pissed and confused to find traffic, only to quickly realize that it was from the wreck my girlfriend was in. This put me further into unpredictable panic mode. I noped out of the traffic and drove down the shoulder. An 18-wheeler had sideswiped her, and she spun out into a ditch in the median, before eventually hitting a tree. It broke her phone, but miraculously she walked away with nothing but bruises and a concussion. Given what could have happened, we were extremely fortunate, but even today I get anxiety just thinking about. I watched The Conjuring and Insidious, alone, in the attic of a large, empty house. At night, of course, and, to really top it off, during a thunderstorm. Not proud, I peed in a bottle that night, because the thought of walking down a dark, creaky hallway to reach the bathroom was utterly insupportable. I was horrified and terrified when I walked in on my mother after she OD'd. 300 pounds of rotting flesh was just laying there. She had gone blue and I felt alone in the room even though I was staring at my mother. My first thought after coming to terms with it was now what? I'm 16 and if I live with my father I'll kill myself. I was so scared, I screamed and cried many times that night. Actually I still cry. Edit, I wanted to thank everyone for the kind words and for sharing their own stories. I've been having a tough time lately and you've all made me tear up a bit. Thanks everyone. Last time I experienced light turbulence in an airplane. I dunno, I really enjoy turbulence. I just know that, statistically, it's basically a non-issue. I guess I'm always so bored that I just relate it with something fun because it's out of the ordinary and it spices up a flight. I know that sounds weird, but it's just an association I've made since I was a kid. It's no fun when it actually starts to hurt, though. Hearing that the apartment of a close friend burned down and not being able to find them. I've had that feeling with relatives after a disaster. Your heart really sinks down and stays there. When I woke up to a random homeless dude standing over me. At least he didn't nut on you. When I woke up from an evening nap to find the TV on. It was a couple of weeks ago. I had messed up my back. Nearly collapsed. The lung and muscle relaxers had turned me into a napping zombie. There was no reason the TV should have been on, no reason it could have been turned on. I stopped dead in my tracks and grabbed the knife. Cautiously opening closet doors, hoping each time that no one was hiding. Knowing if someone was hiding, I was way too weak in my condition to defend myself. Hell, I'm 5 feet 3 inches and 106 pounds, I didn't even stand a chance before the injury. I walked the entire apartment before I felt safe that no one was in my place. I had a bad habit of leaving the back door unlocked while I was home for my friends that would drop by unannounced. No longer have that habit. When some girl tried to push me off a train platform as a joke, and I had a massive flight or fight response. Edit, this friend of mine is really scary. To add on to this experience, she has been seen smoking 2 packs of cigarettes every day. Stolen a toy elephant at a zoo while calling the cashier a squinty-eyed cunt. Told everyone how she has autism, and how she has been cured. Written a full-on, in detail, rape and BDSM scene for an English essay. Gets James on the train, has happened 30 times, and tells people to duck off, you dirty-ass perverts. Coughs up blood and tar in her hand/napkin, stopped this now, she said she's too scared to look at it now. Pulled automatic train doors open so she can get on, WTF. Stole tissue boxes from the grade 2 classrooms to use as a purse/tissue box multiple times. Shouted that she hates having her period while wearing a G-string while in class. She's calmed down a lot, now. She's still a hoot to talk to. I am eternally afraid of the dark, have night lights and Christmas lights glowing in every corner of my home 24/7. I'm very mature. Same goes here. Every room has at least a lamplight that's on all hours of the day. Bedroom has a 20-gallon fish tank with a light on while I sleep. Duck the dark. About a year ago I was camping with my girlfriend in Colorado. We're settling down for the night in our tent, when we suddenly hear howling. There must have been like 15 or so coyotes/wolves/hungry canine beasts, and they were close. I swear I heard them shuffling around outside the tent. I had my steel toe boots on and my knife in hand, ready to duck up some coyotes if they chose to get too close. Didn't sleep much that night, don't think I've ever been so scared or ready to fight for my life. Having an anxiety attack for the first time since high school. Currently dealing with anxiety after going back onto my depression medication. It's very frightening and frustrating dealing with unexpected anxiety attacks that leave my legs weak and my breathing heavy. Just got onto new meds. When my 3-year-old broke away from my grip in a parking lot and headed between the cars into the lane, and I could see a car coming going way too fast for a parking lot. I managed to reach her collar and yank her back just as the car whizzed by, none the wiser. If my finger was shorter or she ran just a moment sooner, I'm sure she would have been hit. I was 32 and my twin brother called me and told me the cancer came back. I cried like a baby. My grandpa has it win. My grandpa is in the hospital right now, not life-threatening. But, we just found out his twin has stage 4 kidney cancer. He has 3 weeks to live, and my grandpa can't visit him because they're states away in 2 different hospitals. My grandpa told his brother he's upset that he can't see him, and his brother said, "You know, Joe, I know you want to see me, but I look in the mirror every day and I see you. I know it's sad, but at least it's a little heartwarming. I am sorry to hear about your brother." It was sometime last quarter in college. I just bombed a midterm and started thinking what I was gonna do about it, started thinking about what my plans are once I get a degree, what I wanted to do for a living and all that jazz. I realized that I had no idea what to do or what I wanted to do. I'm paying thousands of dollars and gaining debt for what reasons? I am truly terrified about what my future hold. This legitimately keeps me up at night. I'd say the maybe 20 seconds when my OB doctor walked into the exam room after my ultrasound and said, "Unfortunately it's not looking so good." My body went cold, my chest starting tingling. All while he told me my daughter had a rare birth defect and would not live outside of my body. That whole few seconds after I knew something was wrong, to the ultimatum that she was going to die, was the most scared I've ever been in my life. I'm sorry. When the girl I loved more than anything or anyone on earth told me she was going to kill herself that night. She ran into the forest by the canal and wouldn't tell me where she was. I couldn't call the police because if I got off the phone with her she was going to do it. She ended up cutting herself pretty badly, but I talked her out of suicide in the end. But it was still one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. We had just pulled our boat into the dock and tied off when my girlfriend grabbed the life vest off my 4-year-old daughter. Mama started walking to the cabin to put the gear away. I turn my back to pull the keys out of the ignition and I hear this loud splash. My child is somewhere in the dark lake water. I dived in face first between the boat and dock and bumped her with my arm. Her eyes. Dirk King cutting onions right now. She looked at me as I pulled her up. Eyes open and coughing. I am overprotective of her to begin with, being adopted. That girl is only person I know I am related to. She is my anchor. I ran to the cabin with her in my arms, sobbing and flipping out on the GF for that vest. Please remember to leave the vest on until you are on dry land. Bad shit can and does happen. Thanks for listening to another episode of Reddit X. Subscribe and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any stories. Feel free to share your own stories below in the comments. Have a good day.